I've seen way too many students over the years who delay because they never feel ready. And that's never going to happen.
Well, Charley, welcome to Am I Ready with myself and Dr. Scott Wright. How are you today?
I'm pretty great. Excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. This is one of our first episodes. We've done a few of them, but this is like really in the heat of it now that we have Mapped up and running, and you can show us your Mapped account from your side. So I'm really excited to dive in and understand your story a little bit more, see what your journey has looked like, and hopefully give you some good feedback that will help you be successful on getting into medical school. How's
Absolutely.
That sound? Sounds great. That's the goal.
Why don't you give us a little 2-minute rundown on who you are and kind of where you are in the process?
Okay, so I guess I'll start with when I graduated high school. I guess that's okay. So I graduated high school in 2018. Not through my class. I don't know if that's relevant, but I always say it. And then 2 days after I graduated, I started at a community college close to Auburn at Southern Union. And then, so 2 days after, started college. So that was no break. But then I think I spent about a year and a half there. And then I transferred to Auburn. And so I've been at Auburn since the fall of 2019. And I'm currently in my senior year, kind of, I think. I have like 3 semesters left after this one. So I'll graduate in December of 2020. And then for my med school journey process, I've taken I was reading that note. Sorry, I got distracted. Okay, so I've been studying for the MCAT right now, and I've taken a practice exam, and I didn't do too well, so I'm still currently studying. And then I plan on applying to med school in 2022 right now, but a lot of things like clinical experience and job shadowing opportunities have been cut for me. So that's why I have a feeling that probably not a good idea to apply, just because I'm kind of lacking on that end. So.
All right.
So let me just ask a question, Charley, before you go on. Your intent is to apply, or what you're thinking right now is you're going to apply in 2022 for the 23 entering class?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I want to, but since the circumstances of COVID,
right.
Kind of thinking maybe not a good idea.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, Charley, why don't we dive into your application? And for those listening to the audio podcast, we're putting this out as on video as well, but I'll do my best to try to narrate what we're looking at as well. So, Charley, if you could maximize your Mapped account.
Okay. Where did it go? Oh, yeah, I put it on a different screen. Okay.
There it is. All
right.
There we go. So this is the Mapped dashboard that we're looking at. So we can see GPA, we can see activities, we can see MCAT score, and that's a practice score, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And some prereqs there. So GPA, we're looking at a cumulative 386, science GPA 387. So GPA is not an issue for you, right?
Right.
You've been doing really solid there. It's interesting that summer semester took a little bit of a dip, and it looks very drastic in the graph because all of the other grades are so high.
Scale.
It dipped to a 3.5, but obviously not the end of the world. So great job with your GPA. What do you think has made you successful GPA wise?
I study a lot, I guess.
Oh, you work hard. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Work ethic.
Yeah. And then looking at your activity hours, so this stands out to me. We see really October 2019 as the first start of some hours, potentially a little bit before that, with a lot of gaps other than the thing that's labeled there, community. What is that, community service?
Yes. Can I open that?
If you hover over it, it'll tell you what it is.
Can I do this?
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so looking at your list here, so you have community service volunteer, not medical clinical, Okay, keep going. You could also filter by category up at the top there too, so you can.
Well, these are the only ones I have listed. Like this is just
Okay,
I only
that's
have
all
one
right.
page, so
Perfect. So what stands out to me is a lack of clinical experience. So you said you're a senior now. What have you been doing with your time?
well, I just recently started volunteering a good bit back at home, and then an academic chair in my sorority. I listed that, and I've been pretty involved in the sorority ever since I joined. So that's one thing, and then I'm also involved in the American Chemistry Society. I've been involved in that since I attended Auburn as well, and we do things like we learn about current research going on in the community and like chemistry related. And then we also perform like chemistry experiments for elementary age children like in the community. So I do that. And then I just started research. So honestly, I am a little behind in a little bit of everything, I feel like, just because school is rough. My major is a little rough. So
Yeah.
I've been trying to find time to fit it all in, and it just happened to be recently, which I know.
Tried to fit it in during a pandemic. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that stands out to me. I'm assuming you started undergrad, what, 2017, 2016?
2018.
2018. Okay. So 2018, there's no activities you have listed here. And 2019, your activities start in August, so summer of 2019. So the first year, I'm guessing, was just a transition to college and making sure everything worked well and you didn't get behind in grades. Is that the kind of idea behind the gap there?
Yes, sir. But I attended a community college and I was involved in a lot of clubs there. And I didn't list those because there was like a short participation. Like I was in like an English society and then also like a national honor society for them. And we didn't do a ton, so I didn't feel like it was relevant to list those. But I was involved in some things, just not in depth. So I didn't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, Charley. So you're from the beginning, you were sort of committed to this idea of going into medicine, going to medical school, and all that. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. I kind of started with that goal.
Okay.
So
Okay. So this isn't a recent sort of, oh, this is what I want to do. I finally figured it out, but it's been a long term. Okay, good.
Okay. So I would just a point of feedback. I would include everything that you've done just so we have a full picture, because it looks like, as Scott was kind of questioning you there, did you know early on that you wanted to be a physician? What have you been doing this whole time? And even if it wasn't medically related, it still shows you active and participating and doing those types of things. So
yeah, I agree with that.
That's good. Okay. What's the thought process for actually getting clinical experience at this point?
Well, recently I have contacted a lot of nursing homes, and they said that I could have some like hands-on experience, but obviously not right now. So I have a few of those lined up. And then I attended a SURE program, like I think at the bottom, surgery undergraduate research experience, except it got moved to Zoom. And then I've spoken with a few of those physicians, and they said that we could do shadowing, and then some of it could possibly be hands-on. So right now my goal is to catch up on the shadowing and hopefully get clinical experience within that. But then if not, I'll also have the nursing home things lined up for whenever things kind of open back up. So,
have you looked at any sort of jobs that you may be able to start doing now, assuming you're comfortable going out at this point?
Yes, sir, I have. There's a few that are available around Auburn, but unfortunately, they require a basic life safety certification, and I've scheduled to get that, but I had to schedule like far in advance because they filled up really fast. So that's kind of keeping me from that at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So activities are lacking, but you had mentioned you're not applying until 2022, so you have some time to course correct there. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we take a look at your MCAT? I'm assuming it's probably just a diagnostic at this point. Let's see.
Yes,
Because
sir.
so we have your blueprint half-length diagnostic on there, and it shows what a normal diagnostic shows,
Yep.
that someone struggled with the MCAT because it was their first time taking a peek at it. So
Yeah.
nothing to worry about there. Obviously, lots of work to do around the MCAT. What's your plan in terms of timing for the MCAT and what you're going to do around MCAT prep?
I realized that I might have said something earlier about my goal was to apply for this be in medical school in 23, but my goal is to be apply in 2021. But
Okay.
I recognize that might not be the best route for me, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this. So I just remembered that I said that earlier.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's
You
I
knew
was
what our
clarifying
feedback
that.
was going to be even
Yeah,
before you came
yeah.
here.
Yeah, that's what I was. So, what are you doing right now in terms of MCAT study?
well, I bought this Kaplan book set, and I've been going through those weekly. I think so far I've covered 2 whole books, and then I think this thing called Anki, to correspond with each thing I'm going over. But I think I do right now with school. It's a little hard, but so far I've been doing about 6 hours a week, which I know isn't great, but I'm studying about 6 hours a week for the MCAT right now to prepare for maybe in April, or May MCAT date.
April's better.
Yeah,
April's better.
Agreed.
Gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay. I see your target date you have listed here and mapped is April 14th, 2021. Okay.
Yeah.
So ideally, ideally that April date is good.
Yes.
Because it gives you some more flexibility with assuming we still have the 1 month turnaround or back to the normal 1 month turnaround for an MCAT score from the AAMC. It gives you a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more information before you actually submit your application.
Or a chance to retake if that was necessary.
Yep. Allows you to retake it a little bit earlier, with the caveat that if you're getting close to that April 14th date and you're just not ready, delay it. Take it when you're ready. Don't rush it just because you have to take it then.
Right.
Okay.
And the ready, the if I can just say that my feeling is that the ready part has to be based on numerical values at some level, because you're never going to feel ready.
Never, ever.
You're not going to feel, and the intuitive part's never going to happen. So you have to set some standards in terms of what that numerical score that you say, okay, if I get on my practice test up to this level, then I'm gonna shoot for it. But if it's not at that level, then I'm going to delay. So I just want to, because I've seen way too many students over the years who delay because they never feel ready, and that's never going to happen.
I heard a great quote reading a book, and the quote was, "A painting is never finished; it just stops in interesting places." And it's the same thing with MCAT prep. It's the same thing with writing your personal statement. You can always prep more, but you just need to stop in a quote interesting place that hopefully is a good score.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's MCAT wise. Let's take a look. Do you have any med schools filled out there yet?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Okay, so we have a couple schools here, 3 MD schools so far and a DO school. So interested in
UCF, okay.
In DO school, obviously a local school for you there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the thought process behind these schools?
Well, I did research on them, and they just kind of I like them, but I guess mainly because that's where I feel like I'll end up when I graduate. So,
what do you mean by that?
My fiance, he'll graduate before me, and he's in aerospace engineering, and that's where his projected job outlook is. So I'll be going where he goes, I guess.
Makes sense.
Right.
And then if he has to move, then we'll be able to fluctuate that, so.
Okay.
I guess that was mainly in my decision where I felt like I would end up or possibly end up.
Right.
When do you think that potential move will be?
So he graduates in this spring. So then.
Okay. It's one of those like purgatory situations where you move and it's like, are you a resident of your former state now? Do you classify yourself as a resident of your new state? But usually there's rules around how long you have to be there. So it's obviously a tricky one, but you got to do what you got to do.
Well, and that does become pretty relevant, and every school, every state has their own rules and regulations, state laws with regard to what it takes to become a resident of that state. I'm obviously much more familiar with Texas, and the reason I say this becomes pretty relevant is, in some states, for example, Texas, if you ended up, because of his work, moving to Houston, which is where Baylor College of Medicine is, and you delayed at a certain number of months to become a Texas resident, then several other schools open up to possibilities. UT Houston, McGovern Medical School, as well as the University of Texas Medical School in Galveston, which is easily drivable from Houston. So particularly from Clear Lake, which is in the Houston area, which is where all the aerospace stuff is for that area. So I think that, again, depending on kind of when you graduate and what the timeline looks like, that's an option for you. Depending on kind of how things play out at this point. So, that's something that you can kind of keep in the back burner a little bit and see how things, because this is a really good point to bring this up. When an applicant like yourself, Charlie, where you have a fiance and you two want to stay together, and your fiance has a job, and this does complicate it a little bit, because it makes it to where you have to be aware of what are the medical schools within the geographical areas that he is thinking about, being in and stuff. So this is, I think, something that I definitely think it sounds like you're being wise in terms of trying to scope out what are the schools and what would that look like depending on where he ends up.
Yeah. And this is not, just to talk about it a little bit more, it's not the medical schools that are punishing or anything, that you're not a resident. It's just they go by state law, and that's just how they have to play it. But it's very interesting. There are so many caveats, and so for anyone listening or watching this, do your research, contact some schools, contact the state. I know OHSU in Portland, they told a student a year or two ago that they would consider her in-state if she had lived in the state a year prior to matriculation, not application. So she could move literally August of the year that she's applying and still be considered in-state for Portland. I had another student who lived in Kentucky, moved to Texas right in the middle of the application cycle. She called University of Louisville Medical School, and they said, "Oh, you went to high school here, your parents live here, we still consider you in-state." So there's lots of little carve-outs for unique situations.
Right. That's right. And, it is possible that you could meet the state standards for more than one state.
Yep.
That becomes a little dicey sometimes, but that is possible that a student could meet, for example, the Texas standards for being a Texas resident, and in that case, the Kentucky standards for still remaining a Kentucky resident.
Scott, have you ever heard of a situation where a student maybe fudged the numbers a little bit and they technically weren't an in-state applicant, specifically for Texas, because they're mandated cutoffs for that 10% rule maximum, and where a school had to withdraw or rescind an acceptance because of that?
Usually, so the answer to your question is usually we catch it, TMD SAS catches it on the front end.
Okay.
And we do have, I would say it's not rare to have students try to manipulate things to make it seem like they've done what is necessary to make it happen.
Yeah.
And when the application service is looking at stuff like that, they're very careful on that kind of thing. So, for example, when you move to the state and you have to be gainfully employed, we're going to ask for pay stubs. We're going to ask for how many hours, if it, looking on the pay stubs, and what number of hours you worked for that pay. And it's going to be pretty extensive in terms of trying to determine, because we do get students who really try to game the system. So don't do that.
Don't do that.
Charlie, don't do that.
Charlie, talk about obviously, as we're recording this, it's the end of September. If the thought process is applying May/June of 2021, we have letters of recommendations to get, lots of clinical experience, etc. Talk about the letter of recommendation thought process. Do you have an idea of who you're going to get letters from?
Yes, sir. At Auburn, they do like this PPAC thing, and you yourself will invite the professors that you would like to write you a recommendation letter, and then they'll come and they'll kind of do like an interview. Or this is how I've comprehended it, speaking with the representatives for the Premed program at Auburn. And they said like pretty much you'll do like a one-on-one interview, and then they'll use that to write their recommendation letter, and then based off of like their personal like knowledge of you and their class and things like that. So I do have a few professors that I still stay in contact with, like even not in their classes, and so I'm pretty confident that they would write me a recommendation letter just because they have previously for other things. And then I just now joined like a research, and I plan on being in that the rest of the time that I do attend Auburn, and they're really nice, and I'm really close with the graduate student and the head, so I feel like that's also a potential recommendation letter there as well.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like you got a pretty good plan in that.
Yeah. Scott, what else do you have for Charlie in terms of questions?
Well, I definitely, you've thought about getting involved with the e-shadowing or the virtual shadowing experiences that are being offered currently.
Yes, sir. I signed up for the one for the MAP did.
Mm-hmm.
I put my email in, but yep. I haven't. I don't think I received an email yet, so I hope I did it right. I'm not for sure.
eShadowing.com. Go there as soon as we're done. First one's
okay.
Tonight.
Okay, that's what it said, but I still didn't receive an email, so I feel like I probably typed my email in wrong, so I'm gonna have to redo
it. Okay. Well, I definitely think that's a good idea within the current context of things. You talked about going through the certification process for clinical experiences for a job type thing, and I think that's a great thing to do. Although, was there some idea about when that might occur, when you were going to be able to do that?
I was able to register for a January time. Okay. So I'll be able to get the basic life safety certificate in January, and then hopefully there'll still be jobs around the Auburn area that will let me, because I know there's a lot that they open up jobs pretty periodically. So hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, and I think some of this depends on what's going to happen with COVID, and the vaccine that might come out, and how quickly that's going to be able to get widely distributed, et cetera. So there's so many question marks right now with regard to the clinical experiences. So that's totally understandable.
Yeah, it's for sure been a little tough. So.
Yeah. Now, are you doing online courses right now, or are you in person, or a combination of the two, or what are you doing at Auburn now?
Pretty much most of my classes are online, but then some of the labs are like hybrids, and then my research is pretty much fully in person. So that's pretty much the only thing that I get to go to throughout the week. So that's pretty good. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, it makes it really nice to get out of the house and go do that, right?
It does, for sure.
Right. Good.
So, Scott, final verdict on if Charlie's ready to apply for 2021?
So 2021, I would say I'm on the fence a little bit on that one. I think more information is needed. If the MCAT's a question mark, the level of clinical experience that you're going to be able to get currently, if nothing changes, then I would say that's going to be problematic. If you're able to get, let's say in the spring, some pretty substantial clinical experiences, then I think it's possible. I think it much safer for 22. And in addition, so your plan is to graduate in December of 21. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I would say by 22, you're going to know more about your MCAT score. You're going to have, hopefully by then, the ability to get more clinical experience. And you're also going to know better about where you're going to be. You don't know that yet. So I would say 2022 sounds much more realistic to me.
Yeah.
And I know that that's kind of a little bit of a downer because you're ready to get on with it and everything. And I totally get that. But I would encourage you you're still young, you're very young, and you have your time is on your side. And so if you can scale back, put the brakes on a little bit, I think you'd be a much better candidate in 22 than in 21.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the feedback. So
yeah, of course. Dr. Gray, what are your thoughts?
I concur. I am very much a conservative person when it comes to applying. Just the whole process is expensive. Reapplying, while not the mythical red flag of being a reapplicant that's out there, it's just a big pain in the butt because you got to go get new letters of recommendations. You need to try to change as much as possible.
Right.
You need to show improvement and growth and all this other stuff that potentially you didn't need to if you had just waited to apply when you were ready the first time. So I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest question mark in my mind is, without the clinical experience, how do you know you want to be a doctor? Right? Without the shadowing experience, without the clinical experience, how do you know you want to be a doctor? And so that's a red flag for me to apply next year, because you're just not going to have the time to get that done.